Good evening and welcome to the 51st edition of the LIVRESQ Empower Your Teaching webinar. This is also the first edition of 2026, and we're really excited to kick this off, sort of where we left off at the end of last year, where we started talking about the new interface and all of the resources that you can add to the new interface. We talked about text the last time, and this time we're going to spend about 30 minutes, maybe a little bit less, talking about images and how we can add images to our projects in LIVRESQ and what the interface looks like, and of course how you can toggle different settings on and off. Right, so without further ado, I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to show you what images, what image layouts we have, because the new interface now works on layouts. This is the way we've based this new way to work with LIVRESQ. So instead of seeing everything, just a minute, let me make sure that everything is clear and that you can see my screen. Great. So instead of working with separate resources, with separate bits of content, we can now work with layouts. And this is what it looks like. You can see the new interface in case you've not been here for a couple of webinars. You can see the new interface when you look inside the editor, when you're inside the section, because we add the content inside the section. And the reason why it looks like this in my case, because it might look slightly different in your case, is because I went under settings here, and when the section toolbar modes, I selected accordion. By default, your account will look like this, expanded, and you can navigate through different categories of content, of layouts up here. I think it's a little bit easier to follow if we go under settings and we go under and we select accordion. The compact way is the way LIVRESQ used to work. So if I select compact, we have the actual resources, and there's one way to add images using the image resource here. We don't have these layouts. Now, what we mean by layouts is that it's not just an image, you can display images in multiple ways. And we went through basic text and advanced text last time, and I was telling you that we have some images here, but let's go under the image accordion with the image tab here and see the ways in which you can add or what these layouts mean. Because instead of just adding an image that pops up at the middle of your row, you can now add a centered image, a full image, an image with the text where you have the text on one side and the image on the other. You have the text overlay on image, you have a grid with 2, 3 images, and you also have the image gallery. So these are the multiple ways in which you can add images, but the advanced text tab here is also sort of includes images, like I just said, because it's sort of a hybrid between text and images. It's kind of when we talk about layouts and the way we can use images inside a course, there are different ways to do it, and of course sometimes we need text right next to an image. So let's take them one by one, and then we're going to go back and also look at some of the advanced text options that we have. First of all, another thing that might be different in my interface from your interface is that I've toggled the contours so that I can see the elements inside a LIVRESQ section. Because inside a LIVRESQ section, very important to note, we still have rows, cells, and inside the cells we have the actual content, the actual image, text, or whatever else, the layout of it. So what I can do here is not see those contours. And in this case, it's a little bit harder to differentiate between these 3 types of elements. I use it like this because it's easier for me to explain to you, and it's easier for the end user, for you to see that if I want to delete this entire thing, not just the text here, because if I just select the text and delete it, then I'm still left with the cell and the row that even has a bookmark. So if I want to delete the entire thing, I'm going to select the row and delete the row. And now I have a 100% clean slate. I have nothing in my section, and I can start adding content to it. So the first option for images is the centered image. I can add this now in 2 ways. Before, in the old LIVRESQ interface, you'd have to drag something and drop it inside your section. I can still do this. I'm just going to do it for the sake of the demonstration. I'm sorry, I'm slightly losing my voice. There we go. So this is when I dragged and dropped it. I took the layout from here and I dropped it. If I use a single click on the layout, it is going to add this layout, this image in this case, because we only have an image that's centered. It's going to add it at the end of my content or at the end of whatever content I select. So if I select this row and I want to add another image after it, I can just click that image and it's going to be automatically added there. So this is what it looks like and this is how it works. I can either use a single click or I can drag and drop it and put it somewhere else. So this is the centered image. The rest of the interface or the rest of the ways we work with LIVRESQ have not changed. This means that if I wanted to change this image with an image from somewhere else, I can just double click on it and I have the same image changing menu. I have the change image button that allows me to either upload a file from my own computer or I can use a stock photo. I can search through 3 sources of stock photos and I can select one and I can use it inside my section. So the way we edit the actual content is the same. What's changed is the way we can add content because now we can add it in multiple layouts. The next one, the next type of image is the full image. And what we mean by full is, as you can see, it now goes from one side of the screen to the other, like a banner. So instead of the image being centered, and this is done automatically, it's harder to change. So if you're using layouts instead of the actual resource, these layouts tend to work best when you keep them like that. And I'll show you when we move back to advanced text, I'll show you what I mean by that. But whatever image I add here will be displayed as a banner, provided it has the right size. And again, I can double click that image. I have the same change image button. I have the same option to either upload a file from my computer, use a stock photo, and whatever other options I had for images before, the possibility to edit it, to add a description, to add the alternative text, I can still do because this menu has not changed. But but what I've done now is add the image with the setting that's now displayed as a banner from one side of the screen to the other instead of it just being centered. The next type of layout is the image with the text next to it. And if we look at this, we'll actually notice, because I have contours turned on, that we have 2 cells, one next to the other. One contains an image, which again we can edit by double clicking, and it's the same interface. I go back to section number 1 to go back to my main section, and we have a text on the other side, which works in the same way. We edit that text by using double click. The difference between editing text and any other type of content in LIVRESQ remains the same, which means that I can edit text straight from my section. So it's not taking me to a different screen. I'm editing the text right here. Whereas for images and other types of content, I'm taken to a different screen. I'm taken to the image editing menu or the video editing menu or because there were too many options to add into the main section. But I can always go back to my section by clicking on section number 1. So we've already seen 3 types of layouts, 3 ways in which we can add images. We have the simple image that's centered, the image that works like a banner, image and text. The next one is a little bit trickier, and we had something similar in advanced text as well. This is an image that is displayed as background for the text. And if we double click on the row, we cannot change that image straight up the way we used to up here for when the image was displayed as an image. Because again, we have the same structure, it's rows, cells, and we have the content inside the cell. If I click on my row, I can see it now. I can see the options that I have for that row. The properties that are displayed on the right-hand side are the properties of that row. Inside the row, I have a cell. If I select it, I have this little menu here, and the platform tells me that I've selected a cell. And the properties that are displayed for that cell are on the right-hand side. And only inside that cell do I have the content, which in this case is an image. In the case of the cell next to it is the text. And again, the properties on the right-hand side work for that particular bit of content. So I can select and I can change the properties at every level, every of these three levels actually. And if we look inside this type of layout where we have the row, the cell, and the text, the image is not here. It's not added as an overt type of content. The only overt type of content that we have is the text, which means that if I double click on this text, I can change what it says. So I can edit the actual text, I can copy and paste text from somewhere else, and so on. If I wanted to change this image, the place where I change it from is the properties of the row, because what this image is the background for my row. So if I select my row, the row that contains everything here, and this is why I insisted from the beginning that we display the contours. So if I select the row, I'll notice that the image I can change is here under background image. That again allows me to either upload a file from my computer or select a stock photo from one of the three stock photo options that one of the three sources that we have for stock photos. So this is a more special layout, and we have a similar type of layout with a background image for a row in the advanced text here. So it works in the same way. I need to select the row and I can change the background image for it, and this is how I actually change this image altogether. Right. So let's keep on going. After this image and text overlay, we have a grid with two images. I just used a single click and I added them. They're not separate cells, so it's a different format, which is why my personal piece of advice, if you will, is to not change too much. So if you want two images like this, then use this. If you don't want two images, because if we duplicate this image, for instance, it will work and it will turn into three images, but it might not if you want to change sort of the way the layout looks. So try to stick with these layouts once you use them. If you want to customize other things, it's better to start from scratch. And in future webinars, we'll get to the constructor. We'll see how this works and how we can start from scratch and configure our own layouts, which is something we could have done up to this point as well. These are pre-made and they work best when we use them the way my colleagues sort of programmed them here. I have two images here. To change either of these images, I can double click that image and I have the same menu. And I can also, what I did very fast here was double click an image and then go back to my section to see inside the section. We have the grid with two images and we have the grid with three images. Very similar. I can change each of these three images. And then finally, we have an interactive way to add images, which is the image gallery. This means that I have the option to add multiple photos and my student will interact with them. I'll go into view mode for my section just to show you what I mean by interacting. It means that once we click on this arrow or we slide the photos, just like in our phones, we can navigate between photos in a gallery. And if I double click on this resource, it looks very similar to the image editing menu, except I have 1, 2, 3 images that I can change. If I want to delete any of these images, if I don't want to have it anymore, then I can use this little remove element, this little bin up here, and I will delete one of the images. If I want to add more images, there's this blue button at the very bottom because I've scrolled down. This is my first image. This is my second. I deleted the third. I can just add it back using Control Z. Okay, here we go. So I undid the fact that I deleted it, and I can add a new element by using the Add New Element button at the very bottom of the image. We've talked about the gallery before, but just a few mentions for the gallery. So the actual menu looks the same as for images, with a few exceptions. The edit image is the same. It gives us this little image editor that allows us to add text to images. It allows us to resize, to change the image, to crop it, to flip it. Some basic editing things that you can do to the images, as well as draw on images, add multiple images, and so on and so forth. So it's a really handy, very quick image editor that's built into LIVRESQ so that you don't have to download that image and use it differently. This is the same. So the menu for each image is the same. Alternative text is the text that you add, you type it out, it's usually a description of an image that allows people who have visual difficulties, or who use screen readers to hear the description that you want of that image. A lot of them now typically do it automatically, but sometimes if it's a really complex image, you might want to add your own alternative text. So this will never appear on the screen. It's just for screen readers to be able to read for people with visual impairments of any sort. The description, if you want to add a text under the image, not as a separate text resource, but just as a description of the image, that appears here. So if I click on Add Description, I get this little box of text that already has some filled in text where I can type in my description. If I don't want to use it, I can click on Remove Description. And this is the same for the simple image, and it's the same for each image of the gallery. But way down here, I can also add a description for my entire gallery. So if I wanted to add a description not for each of the images themselves, I can add a description for my entire gallery, and it works as a text that will appear under the gallery. So this is under the gallery. And let's do this for 2 images just so that we can see how it works. I'm going to add a description for my first image and description 2 for my second image. And if we go into view mode, I'm going to view my row. You can already see that we have the description that I entered under the gallery. I have description 1 for picture 1, description 2 for picture 2, and then I didn't add any others. So I only have the description that appears under the gallery. So there are 2 separate text fields for 2 separate places where we can add the actual description. Otherwise, it works in the same way. You can add descriptions for each image, and in part because you can see we have the same menu that I've just shown you. Add help message is useful if you want to display the resource bar. We don't really do that anymore. This doesn't happen automatically anymore, so I wouldn't get into it unless you really needed it. But there's one feature for images that I really like. We've sort of silently added it in the second half of last year, and it's really useful, especially if you have an image that you need the student to be able to zoom in. And that function is here. It's called Enable Focus on Image Click. If I click on this and I am in view mode, I'm going to do it for this row again. I can click on this image and it becomes bigger, and click on it again to close it. So if you want to display multiple images and they appear too small, and you want the student to be able to zoom in and see the image at the forefront, you can do that. And again, the setting is here, and it's called Enable Focus on Image Click. We've added that, and I'm not sure if I went through it when we talked about images previously. If I did, it's just a refresher. If I didn't, then it's really important to note. And if I don't select it for an image, you can see that I cannot click the other 2 images. I can only click the image for which I've selected this setting. Just a quick update. So now a quick review of what we've done so far, because we're sort of nearing the end. We've finished this category. If you have questions, it's a great opportunity now to write them in chat. If you're watching a recording of this, because I know most of you are watching recordings of this, because of the time differences. Please leave a comment and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. So ask us. We're happy to answer. We're also happy to receive any feedback on this new interface and any feedback in general. The purpose of these webinars is to be close to you, is to sort of give you the possibility to talk to us directly and to tell us what you think of our new updates, to tell us what you need in terms of features now or in the future. And it's really, really important for us to keep this line of communication going. So leave a comment or write to me in the Zoom chat now if you want to ask questions while I sort of do this review for what we've discussed so far. Again, from the very basics, there have been some changes in the LIVRESQ interface, and in order to change between the old interface and the new ways in which you can display the interface, you can go up to My Account here, go under Settings, and you can select one of the three ways in which you can display the interface inside a section. So inside a section is where we add content, and this is where you can select the toolbar, because this right-hand side toolbar is what we've called it, and these are the modes. Expanded is what is by default in your account. Accordion is the one I prefer, and compact is what LIVRESQ used to be. But compact doesn't feature layouts. So if I go back to compact and I wanted to add an image, I only have this basic way to add the image. And it's not centered anymore, by the way, and you'll be able to tell this. So the settings are a little bit different. But I can still add images and everything else. I just cannot add layouts because this major update to the interface actually allows us to add layouts. And we began talking about what these layouts mean before the end of I almost said 2 weeks ago. It wasn't 2 weeks ago, it was a while back, before the end of last year. And I showed you that we have different ways to add text. We can now add 2 columns of text. We can add pre-made sort of layouts for the heading, the subheading, the regular paragraph, which is a simple text. We also went through the advanced text layouts in which we can add a table, we can add a saying, a band, a note. There are some images in some of the advanced text layouts, like here. I can add this row here, and this is what it looks like. But this is still a text. This is the image inside a text that I can change by double clicking and changing that image. So it works a little bit differently because it's not an image per se. And there are different ways here in which we can display text, a saying, and then we can change the picture of Einstein to a portrait of whoever said that quote, and so on and so forth. And we also have a quote plus image, which works very similar to this because the image in the background is actually the background image for the row. Another quick refresh. What I've done here, and the reason why my page looks like this, is because I've displayed the contours by clicking on this button up here. It's a square with a cross in the middle. If I display the contours, I can see that I have rows, cells, and inside each of these cells we have the actual content. So it's not just content on a page. And this helps us sort of understand the layouts better. And for images, our subject for today, the layouts are displayed here under image, and we have the centered image, the full image. If we delete this, we can see them in full size as well. So this is the image that sits at the center of my row. This is the full image, which means that it works as a banner. It goes from one side of my screen to the next. This is the image with the text right next to it. So I have 2 cells. We can see this very clearly here. In one of the cells, I have an image, and in the other cell, I have the text. Then we have a row with an image as background and a little bit of formatting here for this cell. Then we have a grid with 2 images, a grid with 3 images, and finally a gallery of images that allows the student to make this interactive and navigate through multiple photos, multiple images at a time. We also went a little bit through what the menu, the image editing menu looks like, the fact that we can change an image either by uploading one from our computer, or by browsing stock photos. I've also shown you the image editor that's incorporated inside LIVRESQ. And this really useful feature that allows you to enable focus on click, which will essentially allow the student to click on an image and make it bigger, bring it to the forefront. And of course, using these layouts depends a lot on what your course is about and the way you organize your content, the way you organize your course. It's really the sky is the limit. You can create alternative layouts by just using the constructor, and we'll get there, in which you can build your own rows and then add something specific to each cell according to what you need. Right. So if there are any questions, I can still hang around for a minute or two and sort of answer them. Again, if this is a recording that you're watching, leave us a comment. I really hope that you like this new interface. I hope you find it useful and easier to use than the compact version. One of our purposes was to make it easier for you to create lessons and courses that were engaging without without getting stressed about the way it looks, without having to know a lot of code. So our purpose, and you'll see a lot of the changes that are coming this year as well, are about changing sort of the way you work with LIVRESQ to make things easier and to make them easier to understand, easier to work with, and to make your course building faster. Okay, so if there are no questions, I'll remind you that this webinar in English takes place once every 2 weeks on Thursdays at 6:30 Central European Time. That's 7:30 Romanian time. And we're here for about half an hour. We discuss a feature. Next time we meet in 2 weeks, we're going to start talking about the multimedia resources and maybe the interactive resources as well, to sort of show you where things that were already in LIVRESQ are and how we can configure them. Thank you so much for being here or for watching this as a recording, and I will see you in 2 weeks' time. Have a great evening.